The brass key shouldn't have worked on a door that didn't exist on the architectural plans. Mavis turned it slowly, hearing the mechanism click into place with the precision of recent maintenance. Behind the false wall of what should have been a utility closet, a hidden room stretched before them, clearly in active use. Fresh papers sat organized on a mahogany desk. A computer hummed quietly, its screen displaying spreadsheets dated from last week. Someone had been here recently, very recently. Clayton stepped beside his wife, immediately cataloging the details. Separate electrical panel. Independent phone line. Professional-grade security system still blinking green. This wasn't a forgotten room. Someone had maintained this space deliberately, keeping it operational years after Victor Ashmore's supposed death. Mavis, look at the calendar. Today's date was circled in red ink with a notation, "Final Riverside payment authorized." 3 months earlier, they'd driven through Colorado's mountain roads searching for their retirement dream. After 47 years of marriage, they'd scraped together enough savings to buy something special. But retirement had left them both restless. Mavis missed fighting for students whose voices weren't heard. Clayton missed solving problems that actually mattered. The Victor Ashmore estate auction had seemed like providence. While other bidders competed for the main mansion, they'd quietly secured this forgotten cabin for half their budget. The legal paperwork appeared straightforward. Victor Ashmore, former CEO of Mountain Vista Development Corporation, had died of a heart attack 3 years prior. His business empire had collapsed shortly after. But standing in this hidden office, Mavis realized Victor's death had never actually ended anything. Clayton examined the electrical setup. The hidden room operated on a separate power grid, connected to solar panels concealed among the roof's legitimate installations. Phone lines ran through conduits that bypassed the main house entirely. Whoever designed this had planned for long-term secrecy. Fresh documents covered the desk. Wire transfers completed hours ago. Bank routing numbers for Cayman Islands accounts. Corporate registrations for shell companies still listed as active. And most disturbing, a personnel directory showing current employees of something called Ashmore Holdings, LLC, a company that supposedly died with Victor. Mavis picked up a leather-bound address book. Names, phone numbers, payment schedules for dozens of people. County commissioners, EPA inspectors, federal wildlife officials, all marked with recent contact dates. "Clayton," she said, recognizing the same institutional corruption she'd fought against in underfunded schools. "Victor Ashmore isn't dead, or someone took over his operation and kept it running exactly as before." Clayton nodded grimly, pointing to a wall map showing properties across 4 states. Red pins marked completed acquisitions. Yellow pins showed current targets. Blue pins, scattered like breadcrumbs across rural Colorado, marked what the legend called Riverside Phase 2. A cell phone on the desk rang suddenly. The screen displayed DC Contact Senator's office. Clayton and Mavis froze, realizing that whoever maintained this room expected to be here today, at this exact time. They weren't discovering old crimes. They were interrupting active operations. And whoever was supposed to answer that phone would be arriving soon. Clayton answered the phone without thinking, clearing his throat. "Yes." The voice was crisp, professional, clearly expecting someone else. "Mr. Harrison, the Riverside Phase 2 is proceeding on schedule. Final demolition permits have been approved, and the family relocations are complete. Senator Williams' office confirms the environmental exemption will be signed by Friday." Clayton kept his voice neutral. "And the inspector's report? Sealed for the standard 20 years. As requested, Dr. Martinez has been transferred to the Nevada office, and the soil samples have been properly disposed of. No one in Colorado has access to the original contamination data." The line went dead. Mavis was already rifling through filing cabinets, her movements quick and methodical. Folder after folder revealed a systematic operation targeting rural communities across the Mountain West. Environmental contamination reports that had been buried. Federal inspectors who'd been transferred or bribed. "Clayton, look at this." She spread documents across the desk. Maps showed current target communities in Wyoming, Utah, and New Mexico. Rural areas where mining companies wanted to extract resources or build luxury resorts. The pattern was always the same. Contaminate the land through accidental chemical spills. Suppress the environmental reports. Offer families below-market buyouts. Then develop the properties for wealthy buyers who never knew about the toxic legacy buried beneath. Clayton studied a personnel file marked Current Operations Manager. The photo showed a man in his 40s named Marcus Harrison. According to the file, he was still drawing a salary, still making decisions, still maintaining operations that everyone thought had died with Victor. He's been hiding behind Victor's death, Clayton said. Let everyone think the company died with him. Mavis found what broke her heart. Medical records from families who'd been forced to relocate. Children developing respiratory problems after moving to supposedly safer areas. Parents going into debt fighting legal battles they couldn't afford. Elderly community members who died of cancers that might have been preventable. These weren't statistics. These were families like the ones she'd fought for during 30 years of teaching. There's a pattern here, she said, her voice growing stronger. They target indigenous communities and poor rural families because they know these people don't have the resources to fight back. Clayton found financial records that proved her point. The same families were being relocated multiple times, chasing supposed safety that never materialized. Each move put them deeper in debt and further from their support systems. But one name on the current target list made them both freeze. Blackwater Valley Community, Colorado, population 847, scheduled for environmental assessment next month. According to the notes, several families had already begun showing symptoms of mysterious illnesses. A timer on the desk computer showed 18 minutes until Harrison arrival scheduled. 18 minutes to decide whether to run for their own safety or stay and fight for people who had no idea they were about to become victims. Mavis stared at the Blackwater Valley file, her hands trembling with recognition. She knew that community. Ana Sofia Martinez, a bright 8-year-old, whose parents worked the small farms along the valley. The Clearwater family who ran the community store and helped elderly neighbors with medical appointments. Real people, real families, about to become the next victims. I can't let this happen, she said. The same fierce determination Clayton had heard when she'd fought the school board for special education funding. Not when we can stop it. 14 minutes. Clayton calculated the risks. Through the hidden room's window, he could see dust trails on the mountain road, multiple vehicles approaching fast. Mavis, if we stay here, we become part of the problem. But she was already photographing documents with her cell phone, organizing evidence with methodical precision, financial records showing the bribery payments, medical files proving the health impacts, maps identifying future target communities. Clayton found himself torn between protective instincts and a growing rage that surprised him. 40 years of municipal engineering, following environmental regulations, protecting public health. To discover that others in his profession had sold out their ethical obligations felt like personal betrayal. He opened a file marked Engineering Reports, Falsified Data. Names he recognized. Colleagues he'd worked with on state projects. Men he'd respected, who'd apparently been taking payments to alter soil contamination studies for years. They've corrupted the entire system, he said. Everyone who's supposed to protect communities like Blackwater Valley has been bought. 11 minutes. Mavis discovered something that made her gasp. A folder labeled Suicide Prevention Protocol contained strategies for identifying community members who might become problematic during land acquisition processes, people with medical knowledge who might recognize contamination symptoms, local activists who might organize resistance. The protocol outlined methods for discrediting them, isolating them from community support, and in extreme cases, driving them to self-elimination. Clayton, she showed him a photograph. A man in his 50s sitting alone at a kitchen table, surrounded by medical bills and legal documents. The handwritten note read, James Riverwind, Riverside Community. Eliminated himself rather than continue fighting. Problem resolved. Clayton felt his rational control crack. James Riverwind had been a mine safety inspector, someone whose job was protecting workers and communities. 8 minutes. They worked in desperate silence, copying everything onto USB drives from the desk drawer. Financial evidence, medical records, communication logs between corrupt officials. Most importantly, they found Harrison's complete operational plan for Blackwater Valley, the timeline for contaminating the water supply, the predetermined health study that would declare the contamination acceptable levels. 5 minutes. Clayton's phone had signal from the room's cell booster. He started uploading files to his cloud storage, fingers flying over the keyboard. Through the window, 3 black SUVs pulled into the driveway. Men in business suits stepped out, movements coordinated, professional. The back trail leads to that old mining road, Mavis said, grabbing his arm. "If we can reach our truck, we can drive to Blackwater Valley and warn them." But Clayton was staring at the computer screen. Harrison's calendar showed a conference call scheduled for tomorrow morning. All the bribed officials. Final approval for contaminating Blackwater Valley's water supply. Less than 18 hours to stop an environmental crime that would destroy 847 lives. And the men walking toward their hiding place had probably done this many times before. Clayton grabbed the USB drives and stuffed them into his jacket. Back door. Now. They slipped out through the hidden room's rear exit, a concealed panel that opened directly into the forest behind the cabin. Car doors slammed from the front driveway. Heavy footsteps approached the main entrance. Mavis clutched the printed documents as they crept through pine trees toward their truck, parked on the old mining trail 50 yards away. Every snapped twig sounded like gunfire in the mountain silence. "Stop right there," the voice came from directly ahead. A man in a dark suit stepped out from behind their pickup truck, his hand resting inside his jacket. Mid-40s, graying temples, the same face from the personnel file. Marcus Harrison, in person. "You're trespassing on private property," he said calmly. "I'm going to need you to return any materials you may have taken from Mr. Ashmore's office." Clayton stepped protectively in front of Mavis. "We bought this property legally. We have every right to be here." Harrison smiled without warmth. Mr. Ashmore's estate included certain assets that weren't part of the public auction. Business records that remain under corporate ownership. "You mean evidence of environmental crimes?" Mavis said. "I mean proprietary information that could be misinterpreted by people who don't understand land development." More footsteps approached from behind. Harrison's associates had circled through the forest, cutting off their escape route. Clayton's mind raced. The old mining trail continued uphill for 2 miles before connecting to the Forest Service Road. But Harrison's people knew this property better than they did. "Here's what's going to happen," Harrison said. "You're going to hand over whatever you took. Then you're going to sign a confidentiality agreement about what you saw." "And if we refuse?" Clayton asked. Harrison's expression never changed. "Then you'll experience the same unfortunate accident that befell James Riverwind last month. Carbon monoxide leak in your cabin. Very tragic." Mavis felt ice in her veins. "You killed him. I protected hundreds of jobs and millions in economic development from one man's misguided activism, just as I'm prepared to protect them from yours." Clayton calculated distances. Harrison stood 8 feet away. 2 men approached from behind, maybe 15 feet back. Their truck keys were in his pocket, but Harrison was blocking their path. Harrison had made one mistake. He was standing on the uphill side of the old mine trail, where winter runoff had undermined the rocky soil. Clayton knew unstable ground when he saw it. "You're right," Clayton said, raising his hands. "We don't want any trouble." He stepped toward Harrison, as if preparing to hand over the USB drives, then lunged forward, not toward Harrison, but toward the loose rocks beneath his feet. They tumbled down 20 feet of loose rock and slammed into a fallen log. "Run!" Clayton shouted as he grappled with Harrison. But when Mavis looked toward their truck, she saw 2 more vehicles blocking the trail ahead. Harrison hadn't just cut off their retreat. He'd anticipated every escape route. They were trapped on a mountainside with nowhere left to run. Clayton and Harrison rolled down the rocky slope, grappling for control. 20 feet down, they slammed into a fallen log with bone-jarring force. Harrison came up first, blood streaming from his forehead. He reached into his jacket, but Clayton grabbed his wrist before he could draw his weapon. Above them, Mavis watched Harrison's associates closing in. But she noticed something they hadn't. An old mine entrance 30 yards below where the men were fighting. She scrambled down the slope, documents still clutched in her arms. "Clayton! The mine shaft!" Clayton heard her shout and drove his elbow into Harrison's ribs. As Harrison doubled over, Clayton broke free and half ran, half slid toward the mine entrance. "You think you can hide in there?" Harrison called after them, wiping blood from his face. "My people know every tunnel in these mountains." But Mavis had already disappeared into the darkness. Clayton followed, pulling out his phone for its flashlight. The tunnel stretched deeper into the mountain than the light could penetrate. 50 yards in, they found fresh footprints in the dust. Multiple sets leading deeper. This wasn't abandoned. Someone had been using these tunnels recently. They followed the footprints until the tunnel opened into a larger chamber. Emergency lighting powered by car batteries illuminated stacks of plastic barrels labeled with chemical company logos. The air reeked of industrial solvents. "Chemical depot," Mavis said, photographing the barrels. "Industrial poison," ready for injection. Clayton examined the labels. Benzene, mercury compounds, enough toxic material to permanently poison a dozen communities the size of Blackwater Valley. But what made his blood run cold was a shipping manifest taped to one barrel. Tomorrow's date. Destination, Blackwater Valley Municipal Water Treatment Facility. Delivery time, 6 a.m. They're not waiting for some accidental spill, he said. They're injecting this directly into the water supply. Voices echoed from the tunnel entrance. Harrison's people were following their trail. Mavis found what they needed at the back of the chamber. Another tunnel, marked with spray-painted arrows pointing toward Exit 3. They grabbed sample containers and headed toward the exit tunnel, moving as quickly as they dared in the dim light. Clayton's phone buzzed with an incoming call. The caller ID showed a Blackwater Valley area code. Someone from the community was trying to reach them, but Harrison's voice was getting closer, and they had no way of knowing whether answering would save lives or lead Harrison straight to their next victims. 17 hours until the poisoning began, and they still had no way to prove what they'd discovered to anyone who could stop it. Clayton answered the phone as they hurried through the exit tunnel. Hello? Is this Clayton Miller, the man who bought the Ashmore cabin? The voice was young, female, strained with worry. Who is this? Ana Sofia Martinez, from Blackwater Valley. You tutored me when I was 8. Mavis grabbed the phone. Ana Sofia? What's wrong, sweetheart? Mrs. Miller. People are getting sick. My grandfather, the Clearwater family, Mrs. Chen from the post office. They all have the same symptoms. Clayton felt his stomach drop. The poisoning had already begun. Ana Sofia. Has anyone from the water department been working on the pipes recently? Yes. Yesterday morning. They were there for hours, and today the water tastes funny. Behind them, Harrison's voice echoed through the mine shaft. Getting closer. Ana Sofia, listen carefully. You need to get your family out of the valley right now. Don't drink any tap water. But where can we go? My grandfather is too sick to travel. Take him to the VA hospital. Mention chemical exposure. They're required to test, Clayton said. Ana Sofia's voice cracked. They'll never believe us without proof. Mavis felt her heart breaking. These families trusted the system that was poisoning them. Drive to Durango Regional Hospital, she said. Tell them you need emergency treatment for chemical poisoning. All of you. They reached the exit tunnel's mouth, emerging into bright daylight on the far side of the mountain. A truck engine roared to life somewhere behind them. Ana Sofia, there's something else. Take photos of everyone who's sick. Write down exactly what the water department workers looked like. Why? Clayton took back the phone as they jogged down the forest road. Because we're bringing evidence to the FBI today. Real evidence. The FBI? They'll really listen? They'll have to, Mavis said. We have financial records, chemical samples, and communication logs showing the whole conspiracy. But even as she said it, Mavis worried about their chances. Harrison's operation had corrupted officials at multiple levels. The sound of approaching vehicles grew louder. Ana Sofia, one more thing, Clayton said urgently. If anyone comes asking about this phone call, don't tell them anything. You're scaring me. I know. But trust me one more time. Get to that hospital, document everything, and don't drink the water. He hung up as the sound of engines echoed off the mountain walls. 15 hours until the main poisoning event. But the preliminary contamination had already begun, and families were already showing symptoms. They had to reach the authorities before Harrison's people silenced them forever. The Forest Service road led them downhill for half a mile before they spotted Salvation, a Colorado Parks Department ranger station, its green pickup truck parked outside. Clayton and Mavis burst through the door, startling a uniformed ranger updating trail maps on his computer. We need to use your radio, Clayton said, breathing heavily. Federal crimes in progress. People are being poisoned. Ranger Tom Henley looked at the disheveled elderly couple with skepticism. Slow down. What's this about? Mavis pulled out the documents they'd salvaged. Environmental crime. A corporation is deliberately contaminating rural water supplies. The sound of vehicles on the forest road made them all look toward the window. 3 black SUVs were approaching fast. Those men are trying to stop us from reporting this, Clayton said. Henley studied their faces, recognizing genuine terror. He reached for his radio handset. This is Unit 7 calling dispatch. I need immediate contact with the FBI field office in Denver. Possible federal case. The SUVs pulled up outside. 6 men in business suits stepped out, moving toward the ranger station. Federal agents, one announced, flashing a badge through the window. "We need to speak with the two individuals inside." Henley looked at the badge, then at Clayton and Mavis. Something didn't feel right about the timing. "I'm going to need to verify those credentials," he said. "Step inside so I can examine your badge properly." The man hesitated. Real federal agents never hesitated to have their credentials examined. "Actually," Henley continued loudly, "dispatch confirms that the FBI field office is sending a team to investigate. ETA 20 minutes. It was a complete bluff, but the man's expression changed immediately. He spoke quietly to his associates, then approached the window again. "There's been a misunderstanding. We'll return when the FBI arrives." The SUVs departed as quickly as they'd arrived. Henley waited until they were out of sight before turning back to his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 7. I actually do need FBI contact now. Real federal case." Clayton uploaded the mineshaft photos to the ranger station's computer, while Mavis called the Blackwater Valley Hospital. "Anna Sophia's grandfather is stable," she reported, "but his blood work shows mercury and benzene poisoning. The doctor is reporting it to the CDC." Henley studied the uploaded photos of chemical barrels and shipping manifests. "This is enough evidence to shut down their entire operation. But if they're planning to inject chemicals at 6 a.m. tomorrow, we need to move fast." His radio crackled to life. "Unit 7, this is Special Agent Patricia Chen, FBI Environmental Crimes Unit. We're en route to your location. Estimated arrival 15 minutes." For the first time since discovering the hidden room, Mavis felt hope. Real federal agents. Real authority. Real protection for the families of Blackwater Valley. But 12 hours until the poisoning event, and Harrison was still out there with resources, connections, and nothing left to lose. Special Agent Patricia Chen arrived with a team of 6 FBI agents and a hazardous materials specialist. Within minutes, they had secured the ranger station and established it as a command post for the operation. "The chemical analysis confirms your evidence," Agent Chen told Clayton and Mavis. "We've contacted the Blackwater Valley Water Treatment Facility and ordered an immediate shutdown. No contaminated water will enter the distribution network." At 4:47 a.m., FBI tactical teams surrounded the water treatment plant just as Harrison's chemical truck arrived. The driver surrendered immediately. Harrison himself was arrested at a motel 12 miles away, along with detailed plans for contaminating 6 more communities. The shipping manifests and financial records provided prosecutors with evidence spanning 15 years. Marcus Harrison pled guilty to multiple federal charges, including the murder of James Riverwind. Life in prison without parole. Judge Harrison Mitchell, County Commissioner Patricia Wells, and a wave of corrupted officials were arrested in coordinated raids. The conspiracy reached deeper than anyone imagined, but it was finally over. Ana Sofia Martinez called Mavis that afternoon from the hospital. "Mrs. Miller, my grandfather is getting better. The doctors caught the poisoning early. All the families are recovering. What about the water situation? The EPA is installing a temporary clean water system. They say it will take months to completely decontaminate our supply, but we'll have safe drinking water while they work." 3 weeks later, Mavis and Clayton stood in a Denver courtroom as federal prosecutors presented their evidence. But the most meaningful moment came later, when Ana Sofia Martinez graduated from Colorado State University with a degree in environmental engineering. "You taught me to read when I was 8, she told Mavis at the graduation ceremony. "But you really saved my life when I was 22. Clayton and Mavis never returned to their retirement cabin. Instead, they used settlement money to establish the Riverwind Foundation, providing legal assistance to rural communities facing environmental threats. Clayton's engineering expertise and Mavis's teaching skills became powerful tools for training community advocates. Harrison's criminal network was completely dismantled. The families of Blackwater Valley remained healthy in their ancestral home, protected by the clean water they deserved. Ana Sofia became the Foundation's first environmental engineer, carrying forward the fight for communities still at risk. Sometimes the most shocking discoveries in abandoned properties aren't treasures or antiques. Sometimes they're the keys to saving lives and delivering justice to those who need it most. Hundreds of families now drink clean water because 2 people chose courage over comfort when it mattered most. If you enjoyed this story, click the video on your screen now to watch another unforgettable story, where destiny and courage collide in ways you never expected. Don't forget to subscribe and consider a super chat to help us keep bringing you more stories like these. Your support means everything to us.